The processing center hummed with activity as dozens of alien species shuffled through the Coalition's recruitment station. The massive facility floated in orbit around a gray moon, its walls lined with technology that could scan and categorize any biological form in the known galaxy. Stood in line, her hands clasped behind her back, watching the creatures ahead of her with quiet curiosity. She was average height for a human woman, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her clothes were standard-issue Coalition gray, designed to fit 100 different body types. Nothing about her appearance suggested danger. Nothing suggested she was anything more than another hopeful recruit from a species no one had heard of until recently. Sung stood beside her, shifting his weight from foot to foot. He was taller, broader, more obviously athletic. "They keep staring at us," he muttered in Korean, keeping his voice low. "We're new," replied simply. "Let them look." "I don't think they're impressed." Smiled slightly. "That's fine." The line moved forward. Ahead of them, a massive creature with crystalline skin stepped into the scanning chamber. Lights flashed across its body, and within seconds, data streamed across the displays. Classification: Warrior Class. Recommended Assignment: Combat Division. The creature rumbled with satisfaction and moved on. An instructor stood beside the scanner, reviewing each result. He was called OK, and he commanded attention without trying. 8 limbs extended from his segmented torso, each one thick with corded muscle. His species, had built a reputation as the Coalition's finest hand-to-hand combat specialists. OK had personally trained over 3,000 recruits, and his record spoke for itself. He barely glanced at the humans as they approached. Sung went first. The scanner activated, bathing him in blue light. Numbers scrolled across the screen: bone density readings, muscle fiber analysis, neural response time. The machine calculated and recalculated. Finally, it displayed its verdict: Class 4, support roles. Technical division recommended. OK's expression didn't change, but there was something dismissive in the way he waved Sung forward. "Next." Sung opened his mouth to protest but touched his arm. "It's okay," she said quietly. He frowned but stepped aside. Entered the scanning chamber. The blue light washed over her and she stood perfectly still. She'd been through medical scanners before, but this one felt different. More thorough, more invasive. It measured things she didn't know could be measured. The data began populating on the screen. OK watched with barely concealed disinterest. Another soft species from a low-gravity world, he assumed. Perhaps decent stamina, maybe some tool-use capability, but certainly not combat material. Humans had only recently made contact with the Coalition. Their planet was some backwater called Earth, orbiting an unremarkable star. Nothing in their initial reports suggested military significance. The scanner displayed its preliminary assessment: Class 3, support personnel, medical or logistics division recommended. OK nodded, about to dismiss her. Then the machine made a sound it rarely made, a sharp, urgent beep. The display flickered. The lights in the chamber shifted from blue to amber. Text scrolled rapidly across the screen as the scanner recalibrated. OK's eyes narrowed. Other instructors nearby stopped what they were doing and turned to look. The machine was reassessing. New data flooded the display. Skeletal structure analysis revealed bone density far exceeding preliminary estimates. Muscle fiber composition showed a rare combination of fast-twitch and slow-twitch fibers, optimized for both explosive power and endurance. Neural pathways indicated reaction times in the top percentile of all known species, but it was the analysis that made the scanner pause. Joint flexibility exceptional, leverage potential extreme, hand-eye coordination superior, pattern recognition advanced. The scanner's AI cross-referenced this data against its combat database. It analyzed thousands of fighting styles, grappling techniques, and close-quarters combat scenarios. It calculated probable outcomes in engagement after engagement. The display updated. Reassessing threat level. Classification update. Do not challenge in close combat. Warning, extreme threat in grappling range. The chamber fell silent, stood calmly in the fading amber light, unaware of what the screen displayed behind her. She simply waited for permission to exit. OK stared at the readout, then he laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through the processing center. Other aliens joined in, uncertain at first, then more confidently. A human, a threat. The machine had clearly malfunctioned. Apologies, OK said, though his tone carried no real regret. The scanner occasionally has issues with exotic species. Your biochemistry must have confused it. He gestured dismissively. You may proceed to orientation. Stepped out of the chamber. She glanced at the display and read the warning. Her expression didn't change. The scan might be accurate, she said quietly. The laughter stopped. OK's multiple eyes focused on her. Excuse me. I said the scan might be accurate, Instructor. Several aliens exchanged glances. Was this human challenging OK's expertise? The Instructor had forgotten more about combat assessment than most species ever learned. He'd evaluated warriors from every corner of the coalition, and this small, soft-looking creature thought she knew better than his professional judgment. OK stepped closer. He towered over, his 8 limbs making him appear even larger. You believe you pose an extreme threat in close combat. His voice was cold now, the amusement gone. I believe the scanner measured what it measured, replied evenly. Then demonstrate. The words hung in the air. Other recruits stopped their processing, sensing confrontation. Sung moved forward. That's not necessary, he said quickly. She didn't mean. I accept, interrupted. OK's mandibles clicked together in satisfaction. The training arena, now. The word spread quickly. By the time they reached the arena, a crowd had gathered. Recruits from a dozen species lined the observation platforms. Other instructors arrived, curious about the commotion. No one wanted to miss this. A human, fresh off the transport, claiming to be a close combat threat. It would be educational to watch OK put her in her place. The arena was a simple space, 50 meters square, with a padded floor designed to prevent serious injury. OK entered from one side, rolling his shoulders, limbering up his multiple arms. He'd done this hundreds of times. Overconfident recruits needed to be humbled early. It made them better soldiers in the long run. Entered from the opposite side. She wore no protective gear, didn't stretch, didn't warm up. She simply walked to the center of the arena and waited. Non-lethal, she said, first submission. OK agreed with a nod. I will try not to damage you permanently, human. The signal chimed. The match began. OK moved first, closing the distance with frightening speed. His species had evolved for pursuit hunting on a high-gravity world. His multiple limbs gave him options most fighters never had. He could strike high and low simultaneously, grapple from multiple angles, maintain balance while executing techniques that would topple bipedal fighters. He threw a combination designed to overwhelm. 3 arms striking, 2 positioned to catch any counterattack, 3 stabilizing his stance. Moved. She didn't block, didn't counter. She simply wasn't where the strikes landed. She shifted her weight, turned her shoulders, let the attacks whistle past her face by centimeters. Her footwork was minimal, economical. She wasted no energy. The crowd murmured. This wasn't what anyone expected. OK pressed harder. He'd fought defensive fighters before. Eventually they ran out of space. Eventually they made a mistake. He cut off her angles, herded her toward the arena wall, prepared a finishing combination. Continued to evade. She moved like water flowing around his attacks. Her eyes tracked his center of mass, not his limbs. She was reading him, learning his patterns, waiting. OK grew frustrated. This should have been over already. He committed fully to a grappling attack, using all 8 limbs to create an inescapable net. Once he had her, the match would end. His primary arm shot forward, seeking her shoulder. Moved into the attack instead of away. Her hand snapped up and caught his wrist. In the same motion, she turned, stepping beneath his center of gravity. She didn't try to overpower him. She used his own momentum, his own strength. Her body became a fulcrum. Leverage and angle did the rest. OK felt his balance shift, felt his own force working against him. Then he felt the joint lock, precise and unbreakable, exploiting the exact weakness in limb structure that most opponents never discovered. He crashed to his knees, pain receptors fired. If he moved, the joint would dislocate. He was trapped, held by a creature a fraction of his size. Leaned down, her voice quiet enough that only he could hear. "Good boy." The arena remained silent for 3 full seconds. Then chaos erupted. Aliens shouted in a dozen languages. Some rushed toward the arena floor. Others backed away as if might attack them next. Instructors barked orders, trying to restore calm. Through it all, held her position, keeping OK locked in place until the match official called the submission. When she finally released him and stepped back, OK rose slowly. He rotated his primary arm, testing the joint. Nothing broken, nothing damaged, just his pride, and that would heal slower than any physical injury. He looked at with new eyes. The dismissive arrogance was gone, replaced by something closer to respect. "The scanner was correct," he said quietly. Inclined her head. "Thank you for the match, Instructor." The crowd parted as she walked out of the arena. Sung fell into step beside her, grinning widely. "That was incredible. Did you see their faces?" "I saw. You made it look easy." "It wasn't," said. "He's very skilled. I just understood the leverage better." They returned to the processing center to complete their paperwork. Other human recruits gathered around, asking questions, replaying what they'd seen. Answered politely but didn't elaborate. She hadn't come here to show off. She'd come to serve, to represent Earth well, to learn from species with thousands of years more experience in space than humanity. But word spread anyway. By evening, everyone in the facility knew about the human who dropped Instructor OK to his knees. The story grew with each retelling. Some versions had defeating 3 instructors. Others claimed she'd moved so fast the cameras couldn't track her. None of it was true, but truth mattered less than narrative. In the instructor's lounge, OK sat with his colleagues, reviewing footage of the match. They watched in silence as dismantled his attack with minimal effort, watched as she turned his strength into weakness. "Remarkable," said Instructor, a 4-armed Delian weapons master. "I've never seen that joint manipulation before." "Because it requires understanding of our specific anatomy," OK replied. She identified the weakness in less than 30 seconds of observation. "How?" "Humans have been fighting each other for their entire evolutionary history," said a voice from the doorway. They turned to see Commander X, a high-ranking coalition officer, enter the room. She was tall and slender, her species known for strategic thinking rather than physical prowess. "I've been reviewing Earth's file. It's fascinating." She activated a holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, rotating slowly. High-gravity world, abundant predators, extreme climate variation. Humans evolved as pursuit predators themselves. They didn't develop venom or claws or natural armor. Instead, they developed endurance, tool use, and pattern recognition. More images appeared. Humans running, humans tracking, humans fighting in organized groups. "They hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion," Commander X continued. "Sometimes for days. They learned to read movement, predict behavior, exploit weakness. And when they weren't hunting animals, they fought each other, constantly. For territory, resources, status. They've been refining combat into art forms for tens of thousands of years." OK watched the footage again, watched move. She was reading me. "From the first exchange," the commander confirmed. "She didn't try to win immediately. She gathered information, learned your patterns, waited for the right moment. We underestimated them, said. Everyone does. Commander X closed the display. I'm submitting a recommendation to revise human combat assessments. We need them in the field, not behind desks. Over the next few days, more incidents occurred. A human recruit named sparred with a wrestler twice her size and fought to a draw. Another human, Ho, solved a tactical simulation that had stumped coalition officers for months. He used an approach no one had considered, combining elements from 3 different strategic doctrines. The aliens began to understand. Humans weren't specialists. They were generalists. They could fight, strategize, endure, adapt. They weren't the strongest or fastest or at any single task, but they were competent at everything. But not everyone was pleased. In the diplomatic sector of the station, Ambassador Ara watched the reports with growing concern. She represented the Tal hegemony, a coalition of species that had dominated coalition military positions for centuries. The Tal were strong, disciplined, proud. They'd built their reputation through excellence in combat. And now humans were threatening that reputation. This cannot stand, Ara said to her aides. If humans gain military prominence, it shifts the power balance. Other species will question Tal's superiority. What do you propose? One aide asked. We challenge the scanner results, claim the machines are malfunctioning, demand new assessments with oversight. She tapped her desk with a sharp claw. And if that fails, we demonstrate that these humans are not as formidable as they appear. Meanwhile, found herself summoned to Commander X's office. She entered to find the commander reviewing multiple data streams simultaneously. Recruit, please sit. Sat, maintaining the same calm demeanor she always showed. Commander X studied her for a moment. You've caused quite a stir. That wasn't my intention, Commander. I believe you, but intentions don't change results. The commander pulled up new files. I'm forming a special operations unit, mixed species, best of the best. I want humans included. I'm honored, but I'm still just a recruit. A recruit who defeated one of our finest instructors in single combat. With respect, Commander, I didn't defeat him. I won a sparring match using specific knowledge of leverage and anatomy. In a real fight, with weapons, different terrain, multiple opponents, I don't know if I'd survive. Commander X smiled. That's exactly why I want you. You're competent without being arrogant. You understand your limitations. She leaned forward. But I need to know something. How common are your skills among humans? Considered the question. Martial arts training is common on Earth. Millions practice various styles. Some for sport, some for discipline, some for practical self-defense. I'm better than average, but I'm not exceptional by human standards. The commander sat back, processing this information. Millions train in combat arts, for recreation. Yes, Commander. What you demonstrated against OK, how many humans could replicate that? Against that specific opponent, with time to study his movement patterns, thousands, easily. Maybe tens of thousands if we include those who train specifically in grappling arts. The silence stretched out. Commander X finally spoke. Your species weaponized combat to the point where you practice it casually. We also weaponized cooking, storytelling, and running, said. Humans tend to take everything seriously and playfully at the same time. It's how we learn. A chime interrupted them. The commander checked her display and frowned. There's a situation developing. Ambassador Ara is calling for a formal review of human combat assessments. She's claiming the scanners are unreliable and demanding new testing protocols. Is that a problem? It could be. The Tal have significant political influence. If they convince enough council members that humans are overrated or dangerous, they could restrict your species to non-combat roles. She looked at directly. How would you feel about another demonstration, a more formal one? What did you have in mind? The Crucible. It's a comprehensive assessment of combat capability, strategy, endurance, and teamwork. Most species fail at least one component. If humans can pass it, no one will question your place in the coalition defense force. Thought about her fellow recruits. Sung, clever with technology but inexperienced in combat. Ho, brilliant with strategy but physically average. Experienced and capable, but how would she perform under coalition standards? And the others, the dozens of humans who'd come here hopping to prove Earth deserved a place among the stars. "When does it start?" asked. 3 days. I can register up to 20 human candidates. Then let's do it properly. No shortcuts, no special treatment. We'll take the same crucible everyone else does. Commander X nodded approvingly. I'll make the arrangements, but understand what you're committing to. The Crucible has broken warriors who train their entire lives for combat. It's designed to find limits and push past them. Respectfully, Commander, that's just Tuesday for humans. The commander laughed, a sharp bark of sound. I'm beginning to understand why the scanner flagged you as a threat. It's not just the physical capability, it's the attitude. Stood, is there anything else, Commander? Yes, one more thing. The commander's expression turned serious. Ambassador Ara is sending her own champion to the Crucible. War Master. He's undefeated in over 200 matches. She's making this personal. Understood. As left the office, she found Sung waiting in the corridor. Well, what did the commander want? We're going to the Crucible. We, as in all of us. Anyone who wants to volunteer. It's our chance to prove we belong here. Sung grinned. When you say prove, you mean completely dominate, right? I mean we do our best and see what happens. Your version of best, just put an 8-armed combat instructor on his knees. Smiled slightly. Then I guess we'll find out what everyone else's version of best looks like. The Crucible facility occupied an entire section of the station, a massive complex designed to test every aspect of military capability. Stood with 19 other human volunteers in the staging area, listening to the orientation briefing. Around them, candidates from 50 different species prepared themselves in various ways. Some meditated, others performed elaborate warm-up rituals. A few checked and rechecked their equipment. The humans mostly just waited. Instructor running the orientation cycled through the holographic displays showing previous Crucible attempts. The assessment consists of 5 major components, she explained. Physical endurance, combat effectiveness, strategic thinking, technical proficiency, and teamwork. You will be scored individually and collectively. Passing requires meeting minimum thresholds in all categories. Images showed candidates struggling through obstacle courses, grappling in combat scenarios, solving tactical problems under time pressure. The failure rate was prominently displayed. 67% of all candidates failed to complete at least one component. No species has ever had all their candidates pass, continued. The record is held by the, with 82% success rate. That was achieved 15 years ago. Sung leaned toward, no pressure, right? She didn't respond, her attention focused on the briefing. You will begin with the endurance trial, said. A 30-kilometer course through varied terrain and environmental conditions. You'll face obstacles designed to challenge different body types and locomotive methods. There is no time limit, but your performance will be scored based on completion time relative to your species' baseline capabilities. The first group was called forward. 20 candidates entered the course representing 10 different species, watched on the monitors as they began. Some sprinted initially trying to build an early lead, others paced themselves carefully. The course started in normal gravity, then shifted. High gravity sections, low gravity sections, climbing walls, swimming channels, areas with altered atmosphere requiring respirators. One by one, candidates dropped out. The course was designed to find limits. Within 2 hours, 12 of the 20 had withdrawn. The remaining 8 crossed the finish line exhausted, some requiring medical attention. The human group was called next. All 20 entered the course together. They discussed strategy briefly the night before. Ho had suggested they maintain visual contact, help each other through difficult sections, treat it as a team event even though they'd be scored individually. The course began, settled into an easy pace, her breathing controlled. Beside her, moved with the efficient stride of someone who'd done long marches carrying heavy packs. Sung struggled initially with the high-gravity section, but other humans helped him adjust his technique. That's when the observers began to notice something unusual. The humans weren't competing against each other. When one struggled, others slowed to offer advice or assistance. When they reached an obstacle, they shared solutions. They treated the endurance trial as a group problem to solve together. In the observation room, Commander X watched with interest. They're sacrificing individual time to help the group. OK, standing beside her, nodded. Pack behavior, they succeed or fail together. Will it work? Watch. The humans reached the climbing wall, a 100-meter vertical surface with limited handholds. Most species tackled it individually, using their specific anatomical advantages. The humans formed a different strategy. The strongest climbers went first, securing ropes. Then they created a system where each person assisted the next, distributing the effort. Sung, who struggled with upper body strength, made it up faster than he would have alone. A smaller human named, who excelled at climbing, helped guide 3 others through the difficult sections. They moved as a unit. By the time they reached the swimming section, a pattern had emerged. Individual humans had individual strengths, but collectively they covered each other's weaknesses. Where one was fast, another was strong. Where one had poor endurance, another paced them. It was coordination without formal command structure, adaptation without explicit orders. All 20 humans completed the course. Their individual times varied widely, but every single one finished. When the scores posted, the collective average placed them in the 73rd percentile, impressive for a species on their first attempt. But it was the completion rate that drew attention. 100%. No other species had ever achieved that in the endurance trial. The second component was combat effectiveness. Candidates would face opponents in various scenarios, unarmed and armed, individual and group. The matches were semi-randomized, with the AI selecting opponents to provide appropriate challenge levels. Drew her first match against a. The creature outweighed her by 50 kilograms and had a lower center of gravity. In the confined arena, size and mass were significant advantages. The match began and immediately created distance, using her reach and mobility to avoid this initial rush. She didn't try to overpower her opponent. Instead, she waited for the moment when the committed too fully to a takedown attempt. Used the momentum and applied a standing joint lock that forced the submission without violence. The match lasted 47 seconds. Faced a Delian striker, a species known for lightning-fast attacks using their forearms. Took hits, absorbed damage, and waited patiently for patterns to emerge. When she identified the rhythm, she countered with brutal efficiency. The Delian went down hard, stunned by a combination that exploited a gap in their defensive posture. Match after match, the humans demonstrated the same characteristics. They adapted quickly. They learned from observation. They didn't rely on superior strength or speed. They relied on pattern recognition and technical precision. Sung lost his match, but he lasted longer than expected against a superior opponent. Ho won his through strategic positioning rather than combat skill, frustrating his opponent into mistakes. Even the humans who lost their matches showed competence that surprised the evaluators. The third component tested strategic thinking. Candidates were placed in command simulations, given limited information and resources, and required to achieve specific objectives. The scenarios were designed to be unsolvable through conventional tactics. Ho excelled here. He approached problems differently than the alien candidates. Where they looked for optimal solutions within established doctrine, he combined elements that weren't supposed to work together. He used support units offensively, combat units defensively, violated standard tactical principles, and achieved objectives through methods that made the evaluators uncomfortable. But they worked. Other humans showed similar flexibility, solved a supply chain problem by completely restructuring the logistical network in ways that technically violated regulations but dramatically improved efficiency. Won a combat simulation by refusing to engage, instead forcing the enemy to overextend and collapse from their own momentum. The evaluators realized they were seeing a different approach to strategy. Humans didn't just think outside the box, they questioned whether the box needed to exist. Technical proficiency was the fourth component. Candidates had to demonstrate ability with coalition technology, weapons systems, communications equipment, and emergency protocols. This was expected to be humanity's weakest area. Earth's technology was centuries behind coalition standards. But humans had a peculiar talent for reverse engineering. Give them a device, and they'd take it apart to understand how it worked. Sung completed his technical assessment faster than 90% of all candidates. He didn't just learn to use the equipment, he found ways to improve it. This power coupling is inefficient, he told the surprised evaluator. You're losing about 12% energy in the transfer. If you reconfigure the relay array like this, he demonstrated, the efficiency improved to 96%. That's not standard configuration, the evaluator protested. No, but it's better. Want me to show you the math? By the end of the technical component, 3 humans had submitted equipment modification proposals. The evaluators didn't know whether to be impressed or concerned. The fifth and final component was teamwork. Mixed species groups were assigned tactical scenarios requiring cooperation between different capabilities. This was where most species struggled. Different communication styles, conflicting tactical doctrines, hierarchical disputes, these problems plagued mixed units. Found herself assigned to a team with a Delian, a Tal, and a. The scenario was simple: infiltrate a fortified position, retrieve intelligence, and extract without casualties. They had 1 hour to plan and execute. The team immediately fell into argument. The wanted a direct assault. The Delian preferred stealth. The Tal insisted on establishing a command hierarchy first, the unwilling to participate without clear leadership. Listened to each perspective, then she spoke quietly. We can use all of these approaches. The creates a distraction with a feint attack. The Delian infiltrates during the confusion. I provide overwatch and extraction support. The Tal coordinates timing. The maintains communications. You're giving orders, the Tal challenged. By what authority? I'm making a suggestion, said calmly. You're welcome to improve it. The Tal bristled, but the nodded. It uses everyone's strengths, I approve. As do I, said the Delian. The emerged from its shell. I will coordinate. The Tal hesitated, then agreed. Very well, but I will command the operation. Of course, said, showing no ego about the arrangement. They executed the scenario with precision. This attack drew the defenders' attention. The Delian slipped through the defenses, provided covering fire that kept escape routes open. This communication kept everyone synchronized, and the Tal commanded with efficiency once they had a workable plan. They completed the objective with time to spare. In the observation room, Ambassador Ara watched with barely concealed fury. The humans were succeeding, all of them. They weren't just passing the crucible, they were excelling at it. And worse, they were making the other species better through their cooperation. This proves nothing, she said to her aide. They haven't faced a real warrior yet. Wait until the combat finals. War Master is ready, Ambassador. Good, let's see how they handle true Tal superiority. The final stage of the Crucible was called the Predator's Gauntlet, and it had a simple premise: survive against a superior opponent. Each candidate would face a seasoned warrior in a scenario designed to test everything they'd learned. The matches were individual, non-lethal, but brutal. Victory wasn't required. The evaluators looked for how candidates handled overwhelming odds, whether they quit or adapted, whether they learned under pressure. Had advanced through the previous components with consistent performance. She wasn't the fastest human or the strongest. She wasn't the best strategist or the most technically skilled, but she'd scored well in every category, maintaining steady competence across all domains. Now she stood in the prep area, waiting for her final match assignment. The display updated. Her opponent, War Master. Sung saw the assignment and swore, "That's not random." No, agreed, it's not. Appeared beside them, already finished with her own match, a bruise darkening on her jaw. Is the real deal. I watched his earlier matches. He's fast, technical, and he's been fighting for 20 years. This is Ambassador Ara making a point. What point? Sung asked. That humans can be beaten. Stretched her shoulders, rolling her neck. Everyone can be beaten, that's not the question. Then what is? Whether you learn something from it. The arena was packed when entered. Word had spread about the human candidate's performance, and everyone wanted to see this final confrontation. War Master was already waiting, his reptilian features impassive. He was tall, powerfully built, with scales that could deflect bladed weapons. His species, the Tal, had evolved as apex predators on a world where everything was trying to kill everything else. He'd won 214 consecutive matches. He'd never been submitted, never knocked out, never forced to quit. Some opponents had given him difficult fights, but none had defeated him. Bowed respectfully, inclined his head slightly, acknowledging the gesture. The referee outlined the rules. No killing strikes. First submission or incapacitation ends the match. Medical staff standing by. Standard Crucible protocols. Begin. Moved like lightning. His opening combination was designed to end fights quickly, a blitz of strikes targeting vital points. He expected to defend, to back away, to create distance. Instead, she moved forward into his attack, using an angle that made his strikes less effective. She couldn't match his speed, so she reduced the distance his attacks had to travel. They exchanged briefly at close range, landed a body shot that would have dropped most opponents, absorbed it, her conditioning allowing her to take the damage without stopping. She counterattacked, targeting his knee with a low kick, not hard enough to injure but enough to disrupt his stance. Adjusted instantly. He'd fought hundreds of opponents with thousands of different strategies. He'd seen speed, strength, technique, creativity. He cycled through responses automatically, adapting to what showed him. What he didn't expect was that she was also adapting. Every exchange gave her information, favored his right side slightly. His combinations followed patterns, 3 or 4 techniques he reliably used in sequence. His defense had tiny gaps, fractions of a second where he transitioned between offensive and defensive postures. Absorbed punishment while she learned, a strike to her ribs, a glancing blow to her head. Each impact hurt, but each impact also revealed something about how fought. In the observation room, OK watched intently. She's studying him. While getting beaten, Commander X noted. She's paying tuition. Look at her eyes, she's measuring everything. The match continued. Increased pressure, recognizing that was durable enough to withstand his attacks. He moved from feeling out his opponent to actively trying to finish the fight. He landed a spinning strike that sent staggering. She recovered, but slower than before. Pressed his advantage. He could smell victory. Another few seconds and this would be over. He set up his finishing sequence, the one that had ended matches against warriors twice his size. Saw it coming. She'd seen him use variations of this combination in the earlier exchanges. She knew the rhythm now, knew the timing. When committed to the final strike, she made her move. Instead of defending, she attacked. She stepped into his power, accepting a reduced impact to his strike in exchange for perfect positioning. Her hand found the nerve cluster at the base of his secondary spine, a vulnerable point in Tal anatomy that was protected during most fighting stances, but exposed for a fraction of a second during that specific technique. Pressed hard. His body seized. The nerve cluster controlled balance and coordination in his species. Disrupting it caused temporary paralysis. He felt his legs buckle, felt himself falling. Impossible. This human shouldn't know about that weakness. Even if she knew, she shouldn't be able to exploit it. The timing required was too precise, the window too small. He hit the mat, unable to rise. Not unconscious, but incapacitated. The medical team rushed forward. The arena erupted in noise. Some species cheered, others protested. The Tal delegation sat in stunned silence. Their champion, their undefeated war master, had fallen to a human who looked half dead on her feet. Stood over, breathing hard, blood trickling from a cut above her eye. When the medical team confirmed couldn't continue, the referee called the match, extended her hand to help up. The war master stared at her for a long moment, then accepted the assistance. "How did you know?" he asked quietly. "I watched you fight. You're incredible, but everyone has patterns. Everyone has vulnerabilities. I just had to survive long enough to find yours. I've fought for 20 years. No one has found that weakness before." "Then you've been fighting opponents who tried to match your strength," said. "I learned a long time ago that I can't overpower most opponents, so I learned to understand them instead." Studied her with new respect. "You took damage deliberately." "Information has a cost. I paid it." The medical team checked next. Bruised ribs, possible minor concussion, various contusions, nothing serious, but she'd taken a beating. They recommended observation, but she declined. Other humans were still completing their matches. By the end of the day, results were posted. Of the 20 human candidates, 19 had passed the crucible. The one who failed had still completed 4 of 5 components, falling short only in the technical assessment. No species had ever achieved a 95% pass rate. The previous record, held by was 82%. Humanity had shattered it on their first attempt. But more significant than the numbers was how they'd done it. The evaluators reviewed footage and found consistent patterns. Humans cooperated naturally. They adapted constantly. They learned quickly. They used creativity to compensate for physical limitations. And they showed a peculiar characteristic that no other species demonstrated so consistently. They helped each other succeed even when competing individually. Commander X assembled the complete assessment report and forwarded it to Coalition High Command. Her recommendation was clear. Humanity should be granted full military status immediately, with humans eligible for all combat and strategic positions. Ambassador Ara tried to object, but the evidence was overwhelming. War Master himself submitted a supporting statement, noting that while he'd been defeated, it was through superior strategy and technical knowledge rather than luck or accident. He recommended humans be respected as serious warriors. The council met 3 days later. The vote wasn't even close. Humanity was granted full coalition membership with complete military integration. But there was a complication. As Commander X reviewed the approved formation of Task Force Horizon, her new mixed-species Special Operations Unit, she realized she needed to make a decision about leadership. She'd initially planned to offer command to, given her performance and the respect she'd earned. When she called to her office to make the offer, she was surprised by the response. "Thank you, Commander, but I'm not the right choice for command. You defeated War Master. You passed every component of the Crucible. Your fellow candidates respect you." Respect and command are different things, said. I'm good at understanding individuals, reading patterns, solving immediate problems. But long-term strategy, organizational leadership, those require different skills. She paused. You should offer command to Ho. The strategist. He thinks bigger picture. He sees how pieces fit together. And he has the temperament for leadership, making hard decisions, accepting responsibility for outcomes. I'd rather serve in the field. Commander X considered this. You're recommending someone else for a position of authority. That's unusual. On Earth, we have a saying. The best leader is often the one who doesn't want the job but does it anyway because no one else can. Ho will be reluctant, but he'll be good at it. I'll support him as second in command if you want, handle tactical situations while he manages strategy. And what about combat operations? We've seen what you can do. I'll go where I'm needed. But Commander, I didn't come here to be famous or powerful. I came here to serve and to learn. If I can do that best by following someone else's orders, that's fine with me. Commander X smiled. You know what the scanner said about you. Do not challenge in close combat, but I think it missed something. It should have said, do not underestimate her judgment. The meeting concluded with recommendation accepted. Ho would command Task Force Horizon, would serve as tactical advisor and field operative, would handle direct action missions. Sung would manage technical operations, and the unit would include members from a dozen other species, all working together. As left the office, she found OK waiting in the corridor. Instructor, she acknowledged. Just OK now. I've requested reassignment. Sorry. To study human combat methodologies. Your species has developed fighting systems we never considered. I want to learn. He paused. If you'll teach me. Smiled. I'd be honored. But fair warning, I'll probably learn as much from you as you learn from me. That's what I'm counting on. Task Force Horizon assembled for the first time in a briefing room deep within the Coalition station. 12 members representing 8 species sat around a circular table, each one selected for specific skills. Ho stood at the head, looking uncomfortable with the command position, but accepting it with quiet determination. Sat to his right, reviewing tactical data on her display. Sat across from her, already studying the mission parameters. Sung tinkered with a communication device, making minor adjustments. The other team members, aliens had trained with during the Crucible, watched Ho with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. Commander X entered and activated the central hologram. A star system appeared, rotating slowly. 3 days ago, a diplomatic convoy was intercepted by pirates while traveling through the belt. The convoy included ambassadors from 5 coalition species. The pirates took them to a fortified asteroid station and are demanding ransom. Why not send a full assault force? Asked OK, who joined the team as a combat specialist. Because the station is heavily defended and any large-scale attack would likely result in hostage casualties. The pirates have made it clear they'll execute hostages if we attempt a military solution. Commander X zoomed in on the asteroid. This is where your team comes in. Small footprint, precise execution. Get in, extract the hostages, get out. Ho studied the layout. How many pirates? Estimated 40 to 60, organized and well-armed. The station has defensive weapons, shields, and surveillance systems. It's designed to detect and repel attacks. Do we have intelligence on the internal layout? Limited. We know where the hostages are being held, approximately, but most of the station's interior is unknown. Ho looked around the table. Thoughts. Spoke first. Direct assault is suicide. We need infiltration. Agreed, said Sung. But their surveillance will detect any approach. We need to either bypass it or make them ignore us. A Delian team member named spoke up. We could pose as supply runners. Pirates need resources. If we approach as a merchant vessel, we might get close enough to board. And then what? challenged a Tal warrior named. Fight our way through 40 pirates. Even for humans, those odds are poor. Had been silent, but now she traced a path on the hologram. We don't fight all of them. We create chaos, make them think they're under attack from multiple directions, split their forces. Then we extract the hostages while they're distracted. How do we create that kind of chaos with 12 people? Asked. We don't need 12 people to create chaos, Sung said, understanding immediately. We need one person with access to their systems. Ho nodded slowly. Infiltration team gets Sung to their computer core. He triggers false alerts, fake hull breaches, phantom intruders, makes them think they're under siege. While they're scrambling to respond, extraction team gets the hostages. Who's on infiltration? Asked. Sung and OK. You three get into the station, reach the computer core and cause problems. Ho indicated another section of the hologram. You'll lead the extraction team, and 3 others. You board from a different vector once the distraction starts. And you? Asked. I'll coordinate from the support ship with the remaining team members. Someone needs to manage timing and pull everyone out when it goes wrong. When not if, noted. Plans never survive contact with the enemy, Ho said. We prepare for success but expect complications. They spent 6 hours refining the operation. Sung identified vulnerabilities in the station's surveillance systems. OK planned approach routes using his species' natural ability to navigate zero-gravity environments, mapped extraction paths that minimized exposure, studied the pirate organization, looking for patterns in how they'd respond to threats. The team departed 12 hours later aboard 2 ships. The primary vessel approached the asteroid station, broadcasting merchant codes. Ho had arranged for a real merchant to sell them cargo, giving them legitimate inventory to back up their cover story. As they neared the station, defensive systems locked on. A harsh voice came over communications. State your business. Delivering supplies, Ho responded calmly. Food, medical equipment, entertainment media. You put in an order last week. Silence, then we didn't order anything. Check your procurement logs. Someone named authorized the purchase. More silence. Could imagine pirates checking their systems, finding the false records Sung had inserted remotely. The name belonged to a mid-level pirate who'd been killed in an unrelated incident 3 days ago. No one would question orders from a dead man, not immediately. Fine, dock at Bay 3. Try anything and we'll decompress the whole section with you in it. The ship docked. The infiltration team, dressed as merchant crew, carried containers through the airlock. They were scanned for weapons, finding none. The pirates allowed them to proceed into the station with an escort of 4 armed guards. Carried a container of medical supplies. Inside, beneath legitimate inventory, were the components of a weapon she could assemble in 30 seconds. Not a gun, those would be detected. Something simpler, more personal. They moved through the station's corridors. OK, posing as a merchant from his species, noted structural details and guard positions. Sung observed camera placements and computer terminals, watched the guards, learning their movement patterns and readiness levels. When they reached the storage area where they were supposed to leave the supplies, made her move. She stumbled, dropping her container. Medical supplies scattered. The guards cursed, and one moved to help her pick things up. She grabbed his wrist and pulled him off balance. Before he could react, she'd stripped his sidearm and dropped him with a strike to a nerve cluster. The other 3 guards reached for weapons. OK moved with shocking speed, his 8 limbs allowing him to disable 2 guards simultaneously. Sung tackled the 4th, wrestling for his weapon. 15 seconds later, 4 unconscious guards lay on the floor. Checked them quickly. They're alive. We have maybe 2 minutes before someone checks in. Sung accessed a wall terminal, bypassing security with techniques he'd learned from studying coalition systems. Found the computer core. 3 levels down, Section 12. They moved fast, avoiding main corridors using maintenance passages. When they encountered other pirates, they disabled them quickly and quietly. No deaths. Had insisted on that. These were criminals, yes, but they could be captured and tried properly. They reached the computer core. Sung went to work immediately, his fingers flying across alien interfaces. "Give me 3 minutes." And OK guarded the door. They could hear alarms starting to sound elsewhere in the station. Someone had found the unconscious guards. 2 minutes, said. "Almost there," Sung muttered. "Their encryption is primitive, but there's a lot of it." Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Multiple hostiles approaching. Herself. OK positioned beside the doorway, ready to ambush. 6 pirates rounded the corner, weapons drawn. Stepped out, hands raised, looking helpless. They focused on her, didn't see OK until he'd already dropped 2 of them. Moved during their distraction, disarming a third and using him as a shield against the others. The fight was brief and brutal. Took a glancing shot to her shoulder, burned through her clothing but not deep enough to disable her. OK sustained a cut across one limb, but the pirates went down, disarmed and restrained. "Done," Sung announced, triggering the chaos in 3, 2, 1. The station's alarm system went insane. False breach alerts sounded on multiple levels. Phantom intruder warnings flashed. Life support systems reported failures that didn't exist. Every sensor screamed contradictory information. The pirates panicked exactly as predicted. They scattered, rushing to respond to threats that weren't real. The station descended into confusion. "Extraction team, you're clear," Ho's voice came through their communicators. "Hostage location is lightly guarded." His team moved in from their boarding point. They encountered minimal resistance as most pirates were dealing with false emergencies. The hostages were found in a sealed chamber, guarded by only 3 pirates who surrendered immediately when faced with organized opposition. "Hostages secured," reported, moving to extraction point. "Infiltration team, get out," Ho ordered. But leaving was harder than entering. Pirates were starting to realize something was wrong. The false alerts were being investigated and debunked. Security forces were regrouping. His team found their exit route blocked by a dozen armed pirates. Too many to fight through without casualties. "We need another way," OK said. Studied the corridor layout on her communicator. "There's a maintenance shaft that leads to the docking bay. Narrow, but we can fit." "It'll be slow," Sung warned. "They'll catch up." "Not if I delay them," said. "Absolutely not," Ho's voice cut in. "No one stays behind." "I'm not staying behind. I'm buying time. 30 seconds, maybe a minute, then I follow." Before anyone could argue, moved back toward the approaching pirates. She planted herself in a narrow junction where they couldn't surround her. When the first pirates arrived, she engaged. She didn't try to win. She tried to slow them down. She used every technique she knew to control space, make them cautious, force them to approach carefully. She gave ground slowly, making them earn every meter. OK and Sung reached the maintenance shaft and began climbing, counted seconds in her head, 20, 25, 30. She disengaged, sprinting for the shaft. The pirates fired, but she was already moving, using cover, making herself a difficult target. She reached the shaft and dove in, climbing fast. Shots rang out below, but the narrow passage protected her. She emerged at the docking bay seconds after OK and Sung. They ran for the ship. Behind them, pirates were finally organizing a coherent response. The team's ships detached as defensive weapons activated. Ho piloted their vessel with precision, evading fire while the second ship, carrying his team and the hostages, accelerated to safety. They jumped to hyperspace before the pirates could organize pursuit. In the quiet aftermath, the team gathered in the ship's common area. The hostages had been transferred to a coalition vessel for medical evaluation. The mission was complete. 0 casualties. All objectives achieved. Commander X's face appeared on the communications screen. "Outstanding work, Task Force Horizon. You've proven the value of mixed-species operations." Ho nodded tiredly. "We succeeded because everyone contributed their strengths. That's what makes you effective. Humans bring adaptability and creativity. Other species bring specialized capabilities. Together, you're more than the sum of parts." She smiled. "Get some rest. You've earned it." The communication ended. The team dispersed to their quarters, found OK in the training room reviewing footage of the mission. "Analyzing what we did wrong?" she asked. "Analyzing what you did right. That delaying action in the corridor. You controlled 12 hostiles for 43 seconds with no backup. How?" "I made them respect the space, forced them to approach carefully, used their caution against them." "Remarkable." OK paused the footage. "I've been thinking about what you said when we first met, about humans refining combat into art forms. I understand now. You don't just fight, you compose." Smiled. "We learned because we had to. Earth is dangerous. We're not the strongest or fastest. We're just persistent. We keep learning, keep adapting. That's our real advantage." "The scanner was correct," OK said. "Extreme threat, but not because of strength, because of understanding." They trained together for another hour, exchanging techniques, learning from each other. Outside, the ship traveled through hyperspace toward Coalition territory. Inside, warriors from different worlds built something new together. Later stood alone in the observation deck, watching stars blur past. She thought about the journey from Earth to here, from simple recruitment to special operations. She thought about the scanner's warning that started everything. "Do not challenge in close combat." She'd proven the scanner right, not through arrogance but through discipline, not by dominating but by understanding. Humanity had earned respect in the galaxy, not by being the strongest but by being the most adaptable. Her communicator chimed. "A message from Ho, next mission briefing in 6 hours, get some sleep." Smiled. There would always be another mission, another challenge, another opportunity to learn and grow. That was the real human advantage. They never stopped improving, never stopped adapting. She headed to her quarters, tired but satisfied. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. She'd face them the same way she'd faced everything else, with calm competence, quiet confidence, and the knowledge that understanding was always stronger than force. The scanner had been right to warn others about her, not because she was dangerous, but because she represented something the galaxy hadn't seen before, a species that weaponized learning itself, turning every challenge into a lesson, every opponent into a teacher. And that, more than any physical capability, made humans truly formidable.